Hello everyone, this is John Ward with the Appalachian Channel, and I'm here for a behind the scenes update of what it's really like there in North Carolina, western North Carolina, where so many towns and places was just devastated with things that you don't see on the news. And we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about some of the misinformation that's out there. And if you've been watching my videos, you might remember Zeb Proctor here. He lives right here in the same county I do, Campbell County, but it took Lena for us to meet over in North Carolina on Black Mountain.
And you live 15 minutes from down the road.
I live 15 minutes from him. But it's been good to see how many people that even lived in the same community that never met before, but because of the hurricane, they come together and helped each other, and to seeing all the different people that's come in. But Zeb has a volunteer, I call it a volunteer relief corps or volunteer corps, but it's called Volunteer Relief Corps.
Yes, sir. Volunteer Relief Corps. We're based out of Knoxville, roughly, but our volunteers span over predominantly Appalachia. We've had people from North Carolina volunteer for us. Mainly the brunt of our volunteers come from the Knoxville area, the greater Knoxville area. We've also had some volunteers from Arkansas as well. So I mean, it's been good to see the response. Even though it is tragic circumstances, to see Americans just spring into action and ask nothing back in return.
Well, there's so many people wanting to help, and that's one of the things I'm going to talk about on this video. And this is not scripted. We'll just be bouncing around different places. We might talk about something for a minute, then go on to something else and go back to that. But this is just conversation between us to let my view and Zeb's view that we didn't work together. You've been there a long time. I spent 2 weeks right there in western North Carolina and a week in northwestern North Carolina. But how many weekends you think you've been out? 3 or 4 now?
Well, me personally, I've been out. We responded the first weekend, the second weekend. We were focused on Tennessee primarily, working in Mountain City. We established a base in Jonesboro in Washington County. We had teams respond to crisis areas near the Jackson River right there. Had teams in a small little town called Trey, Tennessee, which in Johnson County beside the Watauga line, North Carolina. Had teams in Irwin, had teams in Greene County. That second weekend of Helene that hit. And ever since then, we've had teams off and on responding and doing cleanup volunteer group work, and whether it's Newport, Andrew, North Carolina. We've had some small elements somewhere every weekend since the crisis happened.
Well, I got to spend some time with them. We're going to talk about that. I got to go into Batcave with them, and I was filming there on Black Mountain, and then they went in on the Chimney Rock, and we're going to talk about that. But one of the things I noticed about Zeb's team, it seemed like you kind of run it like you did when you was in the military. Tell us a little bit about your experience in the military and the time that you served and what you saw.
Yeah, sure. I was United States Marine Corps from 2007 to 2011. I was with 3rd Battalion, 9th Marines, Weapons Company. 1-1, we deployed to Iraq in 2008, and we also deployed to Marja, Afghanistan, 2010 to 2011. Some of the best people I've ever met, and absolutely 100% correct. That's kind of how we've set up. When we did our initial call to action for setting up our first big push, what we called Operation Irreverent Supplies, we kind of used social media to make those call to actions. We were lucky to have a local veteran group called Irreverent Warriors allow us to make social media posts on their platform. And through making a call to action on social media, we had a lot of veterans that responded and wanted to help out. That was where some of our core leadership came from. Whether it was one of our team leaders, Dare Crusade, that was building bridges in Asheville with a local church there. Anna Mazinski, she helped out with supply drops in Greene County. And just so many more. There's just so many people you have to name.
You was helping up there on Black Mountain with the bridge. Some of your guys was there helping set some of those beams and get them a position. And then you went out into looking for things to do. You found people that needed firewood, I know. Then I went out with you, and we ended up in Batcave. And one of the things that was really neat in Batcave was that they had food there. That church had come, and they had a
Good
big,
food.
yeah, really good food. You weren't expecting. You're driving in this place looking kind of like a war zone. I guess you've been in a war zone, haven't you, since in Afghanistan?
Yeah.
Well, it kind of looks like it. Does it look like a war zone to you?
Yeah, Chimney Rock and Bat Cave, we've seen a lot of bad areas since responding to the disaster with Helene. And, Chimney Rock, I've just never seen, whether we're talking about Marja, Afghanistan, or some spots I've been in Iraq or wherever else, I personally haven't seen that kind of just sheer destruction that I saw in Chimney Rock. So,
Yeah.
and Bat Cave, very similar. It's just a little north of Chimney Rock for y'all that don't know. They're essentially almost the same little town. They're just barely separated. They're right there side by side.
I didn't go with them into Chimney Rock because I was still working on the project there in Black Cave. I went up there to see what they could maybe get into, because I generally want to be invited by somebody at the local or somebody in authority there for me to come film. Like I did in Saluda, I knew the mayor, contacted her, and by her invitation, I came to start filming there. Then it just kind of snowballed. I thought I'd be in Saluda for 2 days, and I was there for 2 weeks filming in the Green River Cove on Black Mountain and then Bat Cave. We was over in Bat Cave, and that's a whole crazy story there. I don't know if I told you, but these people, they got their river crossing or creek crossing washed out from the storm, and it just made a whole island and a whole nother river over here and cut like 6 foot off the bank. It was just straight down, and they were trapped, and they had kids in school, and they were coming down a rope. They had to rappel down a rope, hold on to that rope down to the creek, then they crossed the ladder, and we got footage of that. They're going to sit in the video. That's probably the next video that come out, where Jake goes in there and builds them 2 river crossings now that they had to have, and it was the first time they'd had their vehicle out in 30 days. And so it's just been I got into following Jake and the things that he was doing, and been able to get donations coming in for the places I've been filming. 6 weeks ago, I'd never dreamed I'd be doing what I'm doing today. I documented Appalachian history and country stores and stuff like that. But this is Appalachian history right here. It's going to be the most historic event probably ever to devastate North Carolina. Actually, it hit 6 states, but North Carolina seems like, I think they probably overall had the most deaths, up to almost 100 people in North Carolina.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, in both North Carolina and in Northeast Tennessee, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I gotta wonder, what are those numbers going to truly reflect, a month, 2 months down the road? Because our group, the Volunteer Relief Corps, and a lot of other adjacent volunteer units, and these are the people. This isn't any type of government program that we're talking about. We're talking about volunteer groups that went down and sacrificed time, still getting text messages and call to actions and asking for help for search teams to go help. What's happened, and Jake's seen this, I know firsthand. These areas that got washed out, and the river, the sheer force of the water was so strong, it washed out, schools, buildings, houses, residences, whatever it may be.
You know what? A lot of these people think that I never saw none of that on the news. What are you talking about? That's one of the things we're going to talk about. All this stuff that he's talking about, because I watched everything I could watch before I got there. Have you seen that stuff that we've seen up there?
No.
On the news? Wonder why that is.
And all these properties that got washed down, they made a new sandbar. The river has changed. The geography has changed.
It went from 40 feet to 400 feet in places.
And where they've washed up all this property and buildings and houses, have washed up and created these new sandbars, that's where they're finding people, that lost their lives. And, it's the people making the effort. I know there's some local municipalities and sheriff departments that are heading up some of these searches too. And, I know that they're involved as well, but, from my observations, it's been the people leading those, and there's still a huge call for that. I feel like we're going to probably see those numbers swell as far as the missing numbers go as well.
Yeah, it's hard to say right now on the numbers. There's some crazy numbers out there. As far as somebody's been putting links in the comments, and I'm starting to realize that these links that are just conspiracy theories will get my channel shut down, because they shut down channels that give misinformation. And most of these channels and these links that was sent to me, it was always just some guy sitting in his car with a phone talking about they killed all these people for the lithium, and my buddy worked somewhere and he knew for a fact that that's what it was about. And it's never no pictures or any video evidence, nothing that has any credibility to them or what they do. They just sit and tell you their theory of what could have happened, which is really like a movie that you'd watch in a movie. And then you hear different ones about Duke Power opened up a dam and it wouldn't have flooded. Well, if whatever Duke Power did with their dams, they kept them from failing. If one of those dams would have failed, there would have been thousands of people dead, because it would have had a huge lake all of a sudden instead of the overflow. So if they opened the dam, they know what they was doing, and they had to open it probably because of the debris that was hitting the top of the dam, and it was going to flow over anyways if they opened it or not. And many of them, I'm sure, did flow over, and even with them open, they still couldn't hold the capacity. So there's theories that, why would Duke Power do billions of dollars worth of damage to all of their infrastructure and their wiring and their power grid Duke Power's had to bring in contractors from all over the United States to build back these telephone poles, wiring. It's costing them hundreds of millions of dollars at the minimum to get people back in because they're not even, where these power lines used to run, there's not even roads there now. So they've got to go to a whole different place to put them. So I'm going to have to start approving any comments that's got these links to these conspiracy theories where somebody's sitting in their basement or sitting at their kitchen table and they're just talking about, and they've not been there. There's no video and there's no pictures of none of this. Yeah. There's a guy the other day, he said he knew there was 20,000 bodies in coolers in North Carolina. And he said one morgue had 1,000. Have you ever seen a morgue that hold 1,000 bodies? No. He was in the military. I know they got some big morgues.
What I would say to anybody out there looking for answers, and that's part of, completely honest, that's part of the reason why us as the Volunteer Relief Corps, we're there as well. Obviously our primary objective is to provide relief and aid to our Appalachian brothers and sisters. However, we want to have eyes on too. And what I'll tell anybody that has any questions and want to know the truth about North Carolina or Northeast Tennessee, hey, you don't have to be with the Volunteer Relief Corps. I know Bitcoin Veterans is doing a lot. Samaritan's Purse is doing a lot. There's a lot of great organizations. Just show up. Just show up. It is sacrifice. Maybe you got to take a week off of work. Maybe you got to drive a lot for a weekend to come down to volunteer, whatever it may be. But put eyes on for yourself. Talk to the people, and the people will tell you what's going on, who's helping.
That's right.
Who's been there.
I've not talked to one person that believed that Duke Dam opened that believes that Duke Power opened the dams to flood them out for whatever reason, or that they got flooded because of somebody did cloud seeding to flood them out to do lithium mining in them valleys. I've not talked to one person that actually lived there and experienced from it that believes any of these conspiracy theories.
Yeah. No, I've not ran into that either. I mean, there's a lot of questions about government incompetence. We talked about.
Oh yeah, well now that we can talk about a little bit more, because we've seen it's been, that gets me a little bit upset now, because I see a waste in the government spending sometimes, and FEMA is short of money, because I ain't going to talk about what people say, but they don't have the money because they spend on other things. And now that actual Americans need this money, it's not there. And they're going to have to go back and hopefully, ever who the next president is, they're going to have a mess on their hands, because they don't realize, people, we've not even talked about the economic impact that's going to affect North Carolina, Tennessee, and all these states, because so many people lost their complete entire home with no insurance. Not only that, many of them still had a mortgage on a place, and they're not even have the dirt no more. It's washed down the river. Yeah. And now the river's in where their house is at. And all they're going to be able to do is file bankruptcy. And all these banks that have these houses financed, if they get all these bankruptcies, and then all the businesses that are closed right now, and like apples and farming, they don't even talk much about all the crop loss. Like, that area is really, they're outside of Saluda in Hendersonville. They got a lot of apple orchards. Yeah. Well, they didn't come to get the apples when they was ready. All of them got destroyed, and the tourists didn't come. So the businesses, the homes, and the people that's not able to work. And then there's another issue that just came to me the other day. I got contacted and asked to talk to some guys from Habitat for Humanity, and they were told that I had been filming and working with different people in different places and documenting their stories, and they wanted to know who they could build a house for. I'm like, what? Why would you come to me? you know,
Because you're the only source. It's blackout media.
But you would think they would have a list of people wanting a house, right? But then, so once I got to talking to them, I said, well, a lot of the houses was washed away, and they're like, "What the problem is, we can't build a house there because when it's rezoned, it's in a flood zone now, and we cannot build a house in a flood zone." And then they also went on to say, most likely, there's never going to be a permit for a septic system with field lines in it in a flood zone. And so some things started coming about a lot now that I'm realizing not only will they might not be able to rebuild some people unless they still have their septic system that didn't get flooded out or washed out. And they might not even issue remodel permits. Who knows what's going to happen? And I don't know how the state will deal with that or the counties will deal with that, but that's going to be a whole mess. I'd like to find out when they issue the first remodel permit to remodel, because I really think that they're going to wait until everything's rezoned on the flooding. Everything's going to be at that height level. They'll come in and survey it, and they'll say this is the flood zone now, and then you can't finance a house. The bank's not going to finance another house on that flood zone because you're not going to be able to get insurance on it because they don't know it floods. So it's going to make a snowball of effect of economic impact, and just the tourism alone this year. Northwest North Carolina got devastated. It's estimated, and this is just an estimating. Last 2 years ago, they did. Western North Carolina does $7.7 billion in tourism. The whole state does $32 billion or $38 billion in total tourism. So just right there over the mountain where Asheville's at, and up on the Blue Ridge Parkway, there's a lot of people that comes look at the Lees in October. They did not come this year because of all what happened, and they estimate just this month alone, those businesses that operate on tourism lost $1.9 billion in 1 month out of that 7.7 they make in the whole year. So there's a lot of that they're not talking about on the news, and all those you saw, I didn't see them, but there's a lot of businesses in Chimney Rock that they're not going to be able to redo those.
No, yeah, they're like I said, the amount of destruction, is unlike anything I've ever seen, and I guarantee my small team that actually went into Chimney Rock last weekend would agree. And part of the thing is, we go back to the government incompetence situation, and I agree with you. They're not going to re-permit or issue permits until the rezoning is done. What is taking so long on the rezoning? Why is it taking the states, the municipalities? I mean, you've got National Guard battalions that should have jurisdiction of the area that could help in any capacity to expedite that process. Because as you said, you've got groups like Habitats for Humanity. There's multiple other groups that I've seen. I know the Amish are there building houses.
They're building houses, but I have not filmed one on anybody's property.
Right, and that's my point. I'm saying
I want to see one hooked up with power to it, and I'll go film it to show people. Are they going to issue a permit for a temporary power pole in a place that's going to be zoned a flood zone? I don't know. I ain't saying they will or not, but that's going to be an issue.
And the one thing that's holding that issue up one way or another is not clarifying and rezoning those areas. That should have been,
official rezoning. Everybody already knows where the level's at. You can see where it went to,
Yeah.
But they got to come in and survey it. Where it's going to be. That my property is none of my property is on any part that's not under a flood zone. Now, some people in some of the haulers, that did not live on the rivers and stuff, they had some higher property, and Habitat can build up as long as it's out of that flood zone. But they got to wait till that mark's put there so they know they can go above that mark and build. So they're having a hard time finding people to build houses for back on their own property. And so, and they got people that's volunteered for them, helping them and basically what you're going to do, let me tell you what you're going to do when you volunteer. Most likely you're going to be shoveling mud out of an underneath a basement on your hands and knees. Is that about what they're going to do a lot of?
Yeah, I mean we've had multiple teams do that. Really, when you just show up to these areas, you just need to have a clear heart and be willing to be flexible and do whatever is needed. You might show up and thought you had in mind of one thing that you wanted to do, and it turns out you might be doing something else. You just got to be flexible. We have a saying with our group VRC, we have a saying, "Semper Gumby," always flexible, and that's one thing that we've really prided ourselves on since the outset of this, and our response is be able to show up. I mean, if you need us to reorganize your supply center and start distributing it out for you, it's what we'll do. If you need us to muck out and clean your basement, that's what we'll do. If you need us to cut up firewood and deliver it to back cave to the fire department, that's what we'll do. You know, if you need us to go out to the communities and just do welfare checks and see, you know, if people need their properties help cleaning their properties up, you know, anything like that is what you need. And you know, and as you said, unfortunately, a lot of this big item stuff that's being donated and houses being built is being delayed because they're not rezoned yet. They don't have the people. When I mean of Chimney Rock, Canton, Bat Cave, Black Mountain.
It goes on. There's so many I couldn't even tell you. Hot Springs, all the way into Irwin, Tennessee, Jonesboro, Newport. It just, they don't show you. Yeah, I'd like to see a list. I'd like to see a list of each major town and that was hit. Yeah. It would have to be in the hundreds.
Oh, absolutely. And they're all being held up because they're not rezoned yet. And you know, that should have been, in my opinion, top priority for local governments and municipalities and the National Guard to get out, provide initial relief, and then also go ahead and deal with the issue of rezoning, so we can make those decisions. Hey, this is a flood zone now. It's not good to build on, or you could rebuild here, and you know, we're going to issue a build permit.
But the problem's going to be they're going to say the government's taking their land. That's going to be another theory that, well, the government's taking my land, but or they condemned it, and they've not. It's always been a law for a long time as we've got over the years as health regulations got stricter on septic tanks and stuff. You know, 50 years ago, you could put a 55-gallon barrel out in your yard and use that for your septic tank. But over the years, they make you have to have so much fill line. Angel, you go over and lay down. She wants some attention. Go lay down. The fill lines, like on this property, I thought I was going to be able to put a septic tank in. Right. And I couldn't because I had sewer running right here on my property. And if you got sewer that you can connect to, you cannot put a fill line in. Now, that might be an option for some of these places that did not. They might can come back and put city sewer in, you know what I'm saying? And they might can put in holding tanks that just holds the solid waste, and then you have it pumped out ever so often. So there's some other options. So I'm not saying everything's just going to be
black or white.
Black or white. There's going to be some options, and it's not going to be as easy as it was. And then there'll be some things that's grandfathered in. Maybe some people that did have a septic tank that didn't wash out. Yeah. Well, then if it survived that, it'll probably survive next time. So they'll probably be good. Then even on the houses that got flooded, and I worked with one of them on Maggie's story, the video. If the water got over the plug-ins, you pretty much have to do all the breakers. Yeah. You have to do all the plug-ins and pretty much most of the wiring. New central heat, new cabinets, new appliances.
Yeah. Complete gut.
It's complete gut pretty much, except maybe a little bit of sheetrock on the ceiling and the top walls. All new insulation. And you gotta spray it for mold, and it's so much harder to go back and do a rebuild. You can build that house in a third of the time. You can go back and redo it because all the work of taking everything out.
Good. Yeah.
And so they're going to be. I know everybody's wanting to work and come and volunteer, and there's a lot of groups, and it's best to work with a group because they have already got the places to find. When you get there, they've got it organized and will tell you where to go to. And you can find them groups, and I found them on Facebook by just searching Helena groups, and they'll pop up. There's a big one, East Tennessee, Helena Recovery, I think, with 20-something thousand people. And I looked on there, and it showed people needing help. Now, another thing I want to talk about is be careful on sending cash money to people that's showing pictures on these relief groups saying they lost their house. Because there's going to be a lot of scams popping up of people making you feel sorry, showing you their kids, and they never even lived in a flood zone. You know, they're still doing fine just wherever they're at, but they're going to show. So one of the things I do is by documenting these different groups and different people like Jake and the Saluda Pantry and Maggie's House and some other things, that you actually see who you are getting to donate to and what it's going to. And we have now started getting checks coming in for these people. And what I've done so that the money never comes directly to me, that goes to these groups, is I have that check made out like to Precision Grading for Jake. And I have it mailed to somebody and saluted to her post office box. She holds that check until it's time to give it to Jake or whoever, or Maggie or whoever's going to get a check. And then at that point, we will film them getting their check that was you sent it to. So you know exactly where that money goes to. So when you donate, and I did not realize I'd end up being a channel covering the recovery of Alina, but especially I didn't know that I'd be helping people raise money through people wanting to help just watching from the videos, you know. And so there'll be information in the description. You can even help Zeb here. His name will be in there. That check will come to me first, so I'll be accountable for that money comes in, and I know what came in, and I won't expect him to know what to do with it. What's one of them generators cost that y'all gave away?
You know, the generators, they're anywhere from $1,500 to $2,500. The ones that we've been giving out, and those, honestly, one thing that the Volunteer Relief Corps, what we've acted as, is a vessel for various churches from all the way from West Virginia, churches from our hometown here in Campbell County, have used us as a vessel to donate,
get it up there
to them, because they have a lot of the same worries of, I'm just sending these out and I just don't want them to go to anybody, or I want them to go to the right place. So, you know, that's one thing that we've been fortunate enough to do, has been linked up with, you know, with various churches or organizations that have reached out to us, say, hey, would you be okay with, you know, transporting these generators for us, or whatever it may be, heaters, you know, food, whatever kind of items. And, you know, that's one thing we just kind of plan on ahead of time, is having a trailer ready to haul and move those generators. But, you know, anywhere from $1,500 to $2,500, you can get them all up to $5,000. And the bigger generators are what you want, because that can plug straight into a breaker box and powerhouse for a limited time. You can't run it all day, but it does give you power throughout the day for a small amount of time, and you can keep your fridge cool and keep food good.
Well, let me tell you what they're using a lot of those for too. Some places are getting their power back.
Yep.
But some places like Maggie's house, or places that got flooded, cannot get their power back on until they get a structural engineer in to make sure their foundation's firm and solid. If they don't pass that, the house has got to be torn down, basically. I think her house is fine. And then you have to have all the wiring redone before you get the power turned on. So they use these generators right now too, while they're rebuilding. Mm-hmm. Because although there's power right here on the pole, they can't hook it to the house, because that house has not been rewired yet. So these generators come in handy for them to live on them or work, run saws, whatever they need to do.
And that goes back to the government incompetence we were talking about. You know, if they would get on the ball, and, you know, FEMA was doing what FEMA was supposed to do, as their intention of being, in responding to these disasters, these crisis zones in an appropriate manner. Miss Maggie and these other people, the people in Batcave, I've had multiple text messages and calls from good people in Batcave asking about trying to get quotes on property for them, so FEMA will reimburse them or whatever it may be. They should have done that first 2 weeks. You know,
they're just now setting up camp.
Yeah,
they're just rolling into town,
and it blows my mind. And
they've even set up in Knoxville, I've heard, in the Wolves Fair Park, and I don't even know why Knoxville didn't get flooded. But
what are you there
I guess
for,
it's a good place to hang out. I guess if I want to camp somewhere, I'd want to camp in the Wolves Fair Park.
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah.
But they're a little ways from the people necessarily, I think. But I'm sure there's going to be people come there to Knoxville to fill out. Basically, what they're doing is, what I saw is the actual people that's getting a check from FEMA are basically only working and dealing with applications. They're not actually out here cutting trees. They subcontract that to everybody else. And I saw there in the Green River Cove, they finally come in last week about Tuesday or Wednesday. And, you know, it took them a minute to get here, because they subcontracted a tree company from California. Yeah. All the way. It took them a long time to drive out here. And I'm sure all the employees got paid by the hour and the mileage on the trucks. And they come out here and they got a big crew to run one truck, and they're very nice people. I'd be happy too. These guys are really happy and friendly people to film. I talked to them. I really didn't film them because I was just, I talked to them. I even had them quit working for a minute so I could film something. You're making too much noise, stop, and they stopped. They didn't care. They stopped. And then, but the funny thing is I guess it's not funny, but you got one guy with this big boom truck. So that if your house is going to be tore down, there's only a limited time that you can get it picked up for free by FEMA to haul all the wood off and all the houses. Your house, that's what Jake's doing a lot of, is tearing people's houses down. But it's got to be within 10 feet of the road, because FEMA ain't going to come in your yard and are paid to have it picked up and brought to the yard. So that homeowner has to have that house tore down, pushed to the road, like you're seeing in the last video I posted. That's what Jake's doing, because you've lost everything. You didn't have any insurance. Now you got to pay to have your house tore down and pay to have it hauled out. That's kind of hard, ain't it?
Yeah, I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine the position a lot of these good people are in. And, if it wasn't for people like Jake and other groups showing up.
And people helping donate to Jake,
Yeah, and the donations, that's huge. Like, it doesn't have to be the VRC. I mean, precision grading, that guy's an Appalachian hero.
He's building. You saw him yesterday. He's building bridges for people. And he's taking the rubble that washed down from the stream up above, this creek up above. He takes whatever metal that was washed down to there, whatever they can scrap out of the. 100%. He brings no materials with him, and they put that together and welded it and put rocks on it and built it back out of nothing that was rubble that was laying there. And they fixed a bridge for these people that had not been out for 30 days. When you're seeing stuff like that, it's just amazing what Americans are doing to help Americans at times, and when, like, the government is not going to build, we didn't even talk about all the bridges yet. All these people lives on these across the creek. They had private bridges, and there's hundreds and probably thousands of bridges that's washed out. They're not county bridges, they're not city bridges, they're not state bridges, they're private bridges, and they have to rebuild them or put a river crossing in. And so that's another thing I haven't seen on the news. Another thing I never saw on the news is when all the power was down, there was no gas for 3 days from Asheville down to Saluda. And people for 3 days couldn't even get gas or diesel fuel because there was no power to the gas station. I never heard that on the news. In Saluda, there was one gas station that had a generator, and it was a 3-hour wait. People coming all the way from Asheville to Saluda to get gas. And I never heard of these things about people. And a lot of people didn't die in the flood; they died in mudslides. It wasn't just the water that got them, and so there's just a lot of things that when you're there and you're seeing, you're like, I've been watching the news because this is what I'm covering, and I want to know what the news is saying. You're like, they come and stood in front of somebody's house that got damaged and left.
Well, and the sad fact about it, journalism isn't what journalism used to be. Now our news networks are politically driven; they're biased. They're not going to report on anything that may hurt their candidate or their agenda. So, people like yourself that are doing true journalism is a rarity. And, I got to tell you, just looking at your channel and seeing the comments and the responses, and then even just the traffic, people have reached out to me after, I appreciate you having us on there. People want to know the truth. And it's just a sad fact that we're in a situation where what's happening to Americans here in our back door, in our right down the road on the other side of the mountain, isn't a priority to our major news networks.
Well, I hate to get political, but if they showed how bad it really was right now and how much of a lack of response by the government, it's going to look bad on one of the parties. I won't say who, but it's going to look bad on them, and it's not going to be good for the election coming up here recently. So they don't want to show this mile after mile of devastation and talk about it. I watched 2 videos about Saluda before I got there that I Googled to see, because I'm always when I go downtown, I'm going to research to see who else has made videos or what information I can find. There were 2 different networks that came in there, local affiliates out of North Carolina. And I can't tell you who they are. I Googled them, and I put in Saluda News, flood news. And both of them come to Saluda, which is up on top of the hill. And I filmed there, and that video's not come out. And I filmed with the mayor, and I went through all the things that they did after the flood and the immediate week and what happened. So I got a lot of videos coming out, guys, that I've already filmed. But I'm trying to get some of the more important stuff out little by little first that people need donations. So, but they came there, and I saw those news reports, and they stood on the railroad tracks over there, and you could see them saluted. And saluted did not get damaged. It got some mud in the road, and a little bit of gravel's washed up, but it's up on a high grade. There's not a river up there. And they showed that everything was open and doing good, and they said everything's fine. And they left when right below their main source of tourism income is the Green River, right down the switchbacks.
Which was devastating.
Devastated. It looks like a war zone. And they never mentioned that there was 35 houses that's not ever seen again. They're gone, and the property on some of them's gone. And they never mentioned that. And I'm like, and when I got there, I wasn't expecting that, because I was thinking,
it's not the story they're looking for.
No, it wasn't, apparently, because they didn't tell it. Like, I went down there in the middle of it,
You see all sorts of weird news, and that's another reason why we want. Again, I tell anybody that's watching this, if you want to know the truth. You can get the truth from a guy like Mr. Ward here, or guys like Jake or our group. But if you want to go, I definitely suggest you show up and go. But I mean, there's just so many news stories out there. Like, for example, you were talking about that, where salute is all fine, everything's good here, everything's good. It's misinformation. That's not the truth.
It's not. What it is, they select what they want to tell you.
Right.
It's not that they're lying.
It's selective information.
Saluda town was good. They were not lying,
but
they were just leaving out.
Their smaller community is
devastated. They just left that out. So they can't get on there and just absolutely lie, but they can tell you what makes their party that they're for looks better.
Yeah.
And what they only report what makes the other party look bad. So they're selective on what stories they tell.
Yeah, and I saw another story from WVLT, which, really, it hurt my heart, because I watch WVLT a lot, and it hurt my heart that they put out such a story. It was something to the effect that the headline was, "Local militias threatening FEMA." The sheriff department had to step in. I don't. It was something like that. And, I personally have not seen a single FEMA worker while I was out. I know you had.
That was early in, too, wasn't it? What was they at?
Yeah,
They hadn't showed up here recently.
Right, we were Trade Tennessee. That young lady and that young man, Army veteran there, that fire department chief, and then you had, his fiance was setting up the supply center. And I said, well, what can we do to help you or help FEMA? And she says, FEMA's not here. So, in our experience, there's been no one to threaten. And, nor would we even do that. That's the thing that boggles my mind. It's just been people helping people. It's been people like Mr. Jake with Precision Grading, our group, Bitcoin Veterans was a big one. A lot of different groups. Samaritan's Purse was huge. Dr. Phil flew into Trade Tennessee on a UH-60 to give out generators and Starlinks. It's been people and private citizens helping people, and I just can't for the life of me understand why the local news stations or major news stations just can't simply cover that. If you're not going to cover anything, at least cover that. And I just can't wrap my head around it.
I don't know. It was when I saw personally FEMA show up somewhere around the 27th in Green River Cove to start cleaning. It's not actual FEMA. They're a contract company, and they'll have a paper that's printed that says FEMA on it with a number, probably their contract number, and it's taped on there with packing tape. Yeah. Okay. And those guys, they're happy because they got a good job, because they're just standing there, most of them. Yeah. There's one guy running the boom, one guy in the truck, and the rest of them's kind of like, ooh, it's a nice day. Yeah. One of them will have a sign and stop on one side for the truck, and then there's one person with a clipboard, and I think every load they get, she checks it. And that's her job. And so I saw some things that, I don't know why they need 2 people in the truck and 6 people on the ground, but it's government contract, so I'm sure they got it figured out. But it's to me, when I'm seeing all the volunteers that drove 1,800 miles and working for free and bought equipment, they have to push all this stuff to the road, get in there and get dirty and muddy and dealing this stuff that's toxic probably. It's got chemicals and human feces and stuff in it, and they're trying to get it to the road when the FEMA people never pick up nothing. They pick, if they can't get it with that claw, they don't get it. And the rest of the 6 that's on the road, they just stand there, and they're happy. They're getting paid good to stand there. So
I think the biggest lesson I learned through all of this, and it was a lesson that I already kind of knew, but it was a lesson I guess we had to learn in real time, was that no one's coming to save you. It is our people that have to respond. And I got to tell you, again, it's tragic circumstances, but the response that we've seen all the way from West Virginia, you know, Tennessee, North Carolina groups, people from all over the country.
Everybody wants to be a part of this event because it's a historic event and they want to help.
And it's the people helping. It is the people doing it. It's Americans helping Americans. And it's sad, but I tell you, it's hard not to get emotional in a positive way too when you see the good things that are being done in the rebuilding and and just the aid.
Oh yeah, I'd come in the evenings and when I'd filmed all day and I'd download the footage and edit tonight, and there'd be times I'd just break in tears for sadness and for just the overwhelming joy of seeing people help. And it's been really hard every day out there seeing people that everything they go on and talking to them. Yeah, I might see 2 or 3 people in a day that lost everything, on some days, and then you come home and deal with that. And so I had to come home and fix my motor home. I hit a tree and knocked off my canopy, and I've bent my steps, and I've done some damage, and I need to come and do a few things. But I'm heading right back to North Carolina. I'm hoping to get into Chimney Rock. I know you guys are going, and let me explain a little bit of how I work. These guys coming into work, they're going to let them in fine. Me coming in to document, if I'm not invited to come by somebody there to tell their story, I can't just show up and say I'm here to take pictures and document. So I'm trying to work. I worked with the mayor in Saluda and got to work there. Then I got with Jake, and with Jake I was able to go to all the different places. Now, I need to get, after watching some footage that they took, I had not really looked at those pictures. You hadn't sent them to me today of what it really was like. You just told me, I asked you, I talked to you later. I said, what was it like in Chimney Rock? And you said, there's nothing there no more. Or there won't be nothing there. By the time they tear everything down, all the houses, there's debris and houses that will be torn down. And I don't know if Jake will get up there to start helping tearing those houses down for people or not. But I need a way in there. And I know that the Spokes of Hope is the ones that's in charge there. And they have a Facebook page. I just found that today. Somebody sent that to me. Actually, Shannon Brookshire, that works with the Saluda Pantry, saw that, sent it to me, and I messaged them, the lady that's over it, trying to see if she'll contact me back about me documenting what they're doing. They just started a few days ago letting people come in and start working out. I think whatever reason, they got the roads good enough for people, volunteers to get in there. I'm not for sure, but they're going to start chainsawing and mucking out stuff and everything that they can do to help people. So if you know them, what's her name? Connie, maybe, that's once over that?
Yeah, her email's on there. You go to their Facebook page and you'll see they'll have a media post. It's essentially a call to action. I believe they're mustering every morning at 8:00 at a chiropractor's office. That's what
it's outside of there. So I'm thinking you're going to have to go there, and they're going to take you in. You're not just going to go there and go in on your own most of the time in this place because it's so devastated. Now, some towns are open, letting people freely come and go now. But some towns like that, they are blocked off a lot of times by the local or state police, and they're checking to see if you're local and why you're there. If you're just there to get pictures or to take pictures or for what they call disaster tourism, you're not going to get in. And if you do, if you're out there taking pictures and there are no locals with you, you might get shot. So these guys, let me tell you, these guys up there are a little edgy sometimes in the mountains, and they've not had internet for a month. They've not had power, no water. And when I go without internet for a day, I get a little edgy myself. Yeah. So I can see why they're a little on edge. So they don't need people up there just there to be there to take pictures. And so that's the reason if you know anybody there, I want to come only by invitation to document somebody's story. And I'd love to document what they're doing. And while I'm there with them, I can document what you all are doing. And hopefully, eventually I think Jake will be caught up in Saluda on the work that he's doing for free. And then he can get up there in Chimney Rock and start, because I saw the drone footage that hit a few days ago that the guy done too, just like what you showed me. And there's going to be a lot of buildings and houses that's going to be tore down up there that's just going to be demolished and pushed to the road to be picked up. So it's going to be a long-term thing. I'm going to be there for over a year, I imagine, just different things and seeing people rebuild back, following their story from losing everything to maybe what they get back and building back. So my whole content has changed, a lot and a whole lot. And so it's been really intense when you're dealing with this. When you're right there in the middle of it, it's kind of gets you a little bit hyper or worked up because you're right in the middle of one of the historic events of the decade there.
Well, you're go, and it's hard to, go from being in a place, like you said, resembles a war zone, and around people that are devastated, and just they're constantly in that fight or flight because they have no other choice, and it's hard to come back to regular,
go back to work every day, and you want to get back, don't you?
Yeah, it's just it's different. It's hard, and a little bit of what we got planned coming up is. We're going to stage in Girton. There's a private citizen there that has been gracious enough to open up his property to us, which is not too far from Chimney Rock. There's Spokes for Hope that's taking in volunteers, and there's a couple other organizations that I'm aware of that are doing taking in volunteers. So we're going to, establish regular weekend, a rotation every weekend where we have 5 to 15 volunteers show up, and that weekend do whatever's needed, whether it's sorting out supplies, whether it's mucking, whether it's shoveling dirt, mud, cleaning, whatever it is, we'll do. But for the long term, what we would like to do, and if this video makes out to anybody that wants to help out with this, or somebody from the area that knows of a need, we would like to, if there's a need, to provide some Thanksgiving meals to some families. If there's a need, we'd like to set up a toy drive and bring a better Christmas under the circumstances to the Chimney Rock and Bat Cave area, because again, the devastation there is unlike anything I've ever seen, and that's just kind of where we feel after all the places that we've hit. And we've operated everywhere from Mountain City down to Chimney Rock and everywhere in between in some capacity. At least try to make supplies and do what we can with the volunteers we have. But we felt initial need there to get boots on ground and see what we could do long term for there.
Yeah, actually, these boots right here, that's what I wore when I was down there. So yeah, I was right there. And when you're watching these people that's talking stuff and they've not been there and they don't have no pictures or video, and you believe that, all I can say is bless your heart, because they have no credentials, they have no proof. They're conspiracy theories, and I'm no longer going to approve those comments. And if you keep putting them on, I'll just have to block you, because I get so many people send me links to these people that's eventually going to get taken down for telling the stuff that they're telling. So if you want to know what's real, look at what I'm filming. I'm right there, and you've seen me film. I'm just right there. You don't hear me talk in the videos that I make. Now this we're talking, but I just go and get the story generally. I let them tell their story. I'm just documenting what they're saying. I'll ask a few questions, but I don't go there and form an opinion of anything. I just let them tell what they want to tell of their story.
Yep.
And so you're seeing firsthand from the people that's lost their house or whatever, and this is going to continue on as they start trying to get permits back, and that's rezoned. This is going to be an ongoing, on the ground, right there with the people, and I'm getting to know the people. The people that I'm filmed that's lost their houses, I went back and talked to them and filmed with them again, like Fast Fred. He was my first person I filmed with, and he was in my last video for just a little bit. So I'm getting to know the people and become friends with them, and they know what I'm doing is letting them tell their story, the way they want to tell it. And so I'm gonna be doing this for a while, and if you want to help the Appalachian Channel, you can do that. There'll be a PayPal link in there, and there'll be you can make a check to me, and you can mail that to Shannon and Saluda. Everything is going to go to Saluda. So there's 2 or 3 parties that knows what came in and what's accountable for on the money, and they go directly to them. You can help Zeb if you don't want to buy them guys a tank of gas. They take trucks up there and trailers, and they take that money out of their pocket. Or if you got a church and you got supplies and you need them distributed, my church has got a lot of supplies, a huge load of supplies that I've worked a way to get it into Irwin. A lot of the problem on the supplies right now is you need to find out what the need is. Don't just go buy stuff, because they don't need everything and they don't have room for everything.
No, yeah.
And some places need diapers and some places need different things. But if you're going to donate somewhere, make sure you find out there's taking supplies, because a lot of them's rented storage spaces and taking it home, putting in the garage and trailers, because they've been in overwhelming spots and everybody wants to help. But now, instead of supplies, it's more monetary help. That way they can get other things that they need, like permits and whatever they're going to be able to buy. The people are like with Jake with gas, or these guys with gas. Jake's equipment, he has beat it to death. When you're using equipment like that every day,
he's a smooth operator, man.
He can work that, but he is, that equipment breaks and busts and in the shop and a lot of work. Yeah, so Jake is one of my main people I send to get the money, because I see firsthand what he's doing. And you know, he's a humble guy, and he's a veteran, and he is just out there every day. He finally took off this weekend to spend time with his daughter after 30 something days of working straight. Yeah. He took a couple of days off, and I was glad to see it. And that's the reason I came back to Tennessee too, because Jake wasn't going to be there this weekend. And but if anybody knows any contacts there with the Spokes of Hope, and that I could work with them and start documenting what they're doing and get an invitation that way, send them this video or talk to them. I just need an end there. And we're going to be working together again, and we'll get together maybe after we come back from our next trip and do another update like this and let people know what it's like. It'll probably be next month sometime. Let's see, this is November, say after Thanksgiving or sometime in there, we'll maybe get together again and give y'all an update of what's actually really going on there in these devastated areas. Well, I'm going to say bye for now. I'm John Ward, and this is
Zeb Proctor, Volunteer Relief Corps.
And guys, we appreciate you watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.